mortgage markets, and more. I'm your host, Peter D'Angelo. I hope you're doing well as we're starting off the first full week of February. We've got your mortgage rate update, and today it's going to be very brief, short, sweet, and to the point. Last week, we saw on Friday that there was jobs data that was released, and jobs data is something that the Fed looks at when they're establishing their monetary policy and considering rate cuts. We've talked about it ad nauseum at this point, but if the Fed cuts their interest rate, we'll see some relief for mortgage rates. However, it's not mutually exclusive. Mortgage rates are tied to how the market is trading, particularly the bond market. So if the bond market starts pricing in and expecting a lower rate environment, it starts to create a lower rate environment. And when I say lower, we're still talking relatively. We saw, peaking close to 8% at one point last year. We settled down into the sixes. So Freddie Mac has their survey of mortgage rates, which was published on Thursday last week, February 1st. And what we were seeing there was a softening of interest rates even further. The average was 6.69. That's down from 6.9 the week prior. So that's helpful. However, here's the latest and greatest after what happened on Friday with the jobs report and the information we got there. The market reacted a little bit negatively to that, and the hopes of a rate cut by March are pretty much dashed at this point. So now the market's trading with the expectation of some higher interest rates for longer, and that started to push up the 30-year mortgage rate on Friday just a little bit. There could be a little bit more volatility this week as we head into the week and see how the markets continue to trade. Overall, I wanted to make sure that I communicated a couple key points, particularly for those of you who are first-time home buyers or you're on the hunt right now to find that home. If you are working with a lender, I know myself at Guaranteed Rate, we're able to lock in rates while you're still shopping. Sometimes it's not getting you the best execution and what we call the absolute lowest rate possible. When you enter into a contract and you're locking your rate at that time, your length of your rate lock will inform the rate that you get. If you get a longer rate lock, it's typically going to have an adverse effect on your interest rate, and you could be looking at a higher interest rate when you get a longer rate lock because you are protecting yourself from any changes that may occur in the market. This is something that's possible. Not every lender does it, but point number one, if you're shopping and you have the ability to lock in a way that will allow you access to market rate, when you do find a property, then I would recommend doing so right now. We can see that rates can get a little volatile over the next few weeks, and every penny matters, especially from an affordability standpoint. After Friday, we talked a lot about how the real estate market is getting super competitive. So you got to make sure you're protecting your pocket, and a rate lock while you're shopping is certainly one way to do that. Secondly, this one goes out to realtors who are out there servicing their clients and showing homes and have established budgets. It's something to take a look at on a weekly basis. Keep the communication line open with your mortgage partner who's servicing your clients, because the last thing you want to do right now is be taking them to a home that they fall in love with, and then the competition is fierce and it pushes things outside of their price point and outside of their budget. The third thing to look for is, we talked a little bit about this on Friday, list prices aren't all equal. And I think it's important for everyone to know at this point that list prices aren't necessarily indicative of market value. List prices are being set in a way that makes sense for real estate agents to garner the most attention for the properties as possible. However, this is leading to bidding wars, and it's starting to happen again, at least in my market in North Jersey and surrounding markets, and I think a case could be made for other markets in the country right now. With the higher competition, it's really important to establish what's your maximum, kind of working from your monthly payment of what you can afford and what you're comfortable with and backing into your maximum buying power. And then it could be prudent to pad the interest rate in the pre-approval process. I'm giving away the secret sauce here. And the secret sauce is you add a little bit to the interest rate so that your clients are also prepared for what could be a higher rate when the time comes, when they have a property they've identified, that they have an accepted offer on, and then that they're moving forward in their transaction. These are just some tips and tricks to consider to try to manage this market the best. I've had conversations with some very senior real estate agents who are seasoned, have seen a lot of different markets in their tenure, and quite frankly, what's happening right now, it's wild. There's so much going on from the standpoint of where list prices are, where the value is going to wind up landing, how interest rates are not quite just hanging out in a small margin. We've got a possible wide margin that we could be seeing in the coming weeks, mainly because the market wasn't prepared for the Fed to not cut rates. And now that the market is digesting the pill of reality, we are going to see some higher rates. And when I say higher, it can run the gamut. It'll really depend on some of the other data that gets released. But for right now, I feel confident in saying over the next few weeks, we're going to see pop up and dip down on the 30-year mortgage rate. I mentioned on Friday also about inflation readings and taking a look at where inflation is going and how there's different ways to interpret the same data that derives in the inflation numbers. The same can be said when we talk about the average 30-year mortgage rate. Freddie Mac issues their report on Thursday. That's what I like to share on this show every Monday. But there's also, you could do a Google search and you can see a wide disparity of what the average mortgage rate is. And it really depends on what data is being collected to derive that average. I know if you check Google showed a 5.99% average interest rate. That didn't quite seem right, but it could also be the fact that there are online lenders that will post interest rates as kind of teaser rates, something to garner attention. They need to legally deliver on that, but it could be a very specific client type and profile, even though the truth in lending laws require that if you're going to be posting an interest rate, it needs to be reasonably available to the majority of applicants. So sometimes you'll see some rates out there that are kind of teaser rates and you get what you pay for. And from the mortgage standpoint, if you're getting a severely discounted rate, be cautious of the service level that you may be getting. It's going to be good to make sure that you perform your due diligence to ensure you're going to be delivered your financing in a timely fashion. That communication is going to occur across your realtor partner, your attorney, if you happen to have one in your transaction, and make sure that you deliver the closing on time. These are all very important things. They're not as tangible as what an interest rate looks like when you're shopping for a mortgage, but it's very important for the quality of life that you're going to have and also the insurance that you're going to close and that you're going to close on time. If you don't close on time, there could be negative ramifications for that. So these are just a few things that I wanted to alert everyone to as we're going into the new week and as we're seeing the interest rate environment start to shift a little. I don't think that we're going to see rates spike up, barring some really hot inflation data that gets produced or other jobs information or revisions of estimates from previous data that normally affect what the Fed looks at when they're making their decision for mortgage rates. As I said, it's going to be a quick one today, so I thank you for listening. Tune in on Friday. We'll have a real estate market update as well. But in the meantime, feel free to reach out, like, share, subscribe, comment. Let me know your thoughts and if there's anything that you'd be interested in learning about. And I would be more than happy to spend some time on those items. Have a great week and take good care.